I send my greetings on this Tamil Remembrance Day to everybody in my constituency and around the world remembering loved ones today. I've been looking at the latest observations from the UN Human Rights Council about developments in Sri Lanka. Things are going backwards. In a very detailed report to the meeting in Geneva in February, the Commissioner wrote this, and I'm quoting. Nearly 5 years after the adoption of Resolution 30/1, some progress has been made, but the government has been unable to deal comprehensively with the past, risking a repeating cycle of violence and human rights violations. The High Commissioner is concerned by various signs indicating a possible reversal of past commitments by the government, which would set back the promotion of reconciliation, accountability, and human rights, reduce civic space, and erode important institutional safeguards in Sri Lanka. The overall goals of Resolution 31 must be protected and built upon to provide justice and redress to victims, guarantee the non-recurrence of past patterns of human rights violation, and promote peaceful, inclusive, and sustainable development. Well, far from protecting the goals of Resolution 30/1, the government of Sri Lanka announced it was pulling out from the resolution. In March, the Human Rights Commission said this: "We're troubled by reports that the convicted perpetrator of the Mirisuville massacre in Sri Lanka has received a presidential pardon and was released from jail this week. Former army sergeant was sentenced in 2015 for the murder in 2000 of 8 civilians, including a 5-year-old child, after more than a decade-long trial. 5 defendants were brought to trial, but only the sergeant was convicted. This was one of the rare human rights cases from the decades-long conflict that had ever reached conviction. The presidential pardon is an affront to victims and yet another example of the failure of Sri Lanka to fulfill its international human rights obligations to provide meaningful accountability for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and other gross violations of human rights. In May, a report was published on the 2019 visit to Sri Lanka by the Special Rapporteur on the rights to freedom of peaceful assembly and of association. He said this: "Surveillance and intimidation creates a climate of mistrust and fear, which leads to self-censorship and has a chilling effect on civic space. Many members of civil society also expressed fear of how this information might be used in the future." And he went on, "A recurring theme in conversations that the Special Rapporteur had during his visit was the systematic discrimination faced by ethnic and religious minorities. This discrimination comes in many forms, including the use of vilifying language by high-level officials, the lack of parity regarding the application of laws, police inaction, smear campaigns through the media, hate speech online and offline. The issue of the uneven application of legislation to the detriment of minorities was raised with the Special Rapporteur on numerous occasions. The problems in Sri Lanka can't be resolved without an independent international inquiry on what happened at the end of the Civil War. I shall continue to press the UK government to demand one." I pass on my greetings to everyone.